How World War III in the Middle East could impact India. What would happen if a major war in the Middle East turned into World War III? How would it affect India's economy, fuel prices, jobs, and security? Right now, rising tensions between the United States, Iran, and regional actors are creating global concerns. While India is not directly involved in the war, the consequences could still reach millions of people across the country. In this video, we'll explore how a major Middle East war could impact India, from oil prices to trade, the economy, and even Indian workers abroad. Let's break it down step by step. 1. The biggest threat. India's oil supply. The biggest impact on India would come from energy security. India is the world's third largest consumer of crude oil, and more than 80 to 90% of its oil is imported from other countries. A large portion of this oil comes from Middle Eastern countries like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the UAE, and much of it travels through a narrow waterway called the Strait of Hormuz. This route is extremely important because around half of India's oil imports pass through this strait. If war disrupts this shipping route, oil supplies could slow down or even stop. And when oil supply drops, fuel prices rise dramatically. Experts warn that rising crude prices could increase inflation, transportation costs, and electricity prices across India. In simple terms, petrol, diesel, and gas cylinders could become much more expensive. Two. Impact on India's economy. A large war in the Middle East could also shake India's economy. The region is extremely important for India because about 55% of India's crude oil imports come from the Middle East. Around 17% of India's exports go to this region, and nearly 38% of remittances come from Indian workers living there. If war disrupts trade routes and economies in the Gulf, several things could happen. India's export industries could suffer, shipping and logistics costs could rise, the Indian rupee could weaken against the dollar. Economists also warn that higher oil prices could increase India's trade deficit and slow economic growth. 3. Risk to millions of Indians in the Gulf. Another major concern is the safety of Indian citizens abroad. Nearly 10 million Indians live and work in Gulf countries such as the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait. These workers send billions of dollars back to India every year. But if the war spreads across the Middle East, Indian workers could face job losses, remittances to India could fall, and evacuation operations might become necessary. We've seen similar situations before, during conflicts in Iraq, Kuwait, and Yemen, where India had to bring thousands of citizens back home. 4. Trade and shipping disruptions. War in the Middle East could also affect India's international trade. Shipping companies may avoid dangerous war zones. Insurance costs for cargo ships could increase. In fact, reports already show that Indian export shipments are facing delays and higher transport costs due to regional tensions near the Strait of Hormuz. This affects industries such as leather exports, agriculture products like rice and tea, manufacturing goods. If the conflict continues, global supply chains could slow down, impacting Indian businesses and exporters. 5. Stock market and currency impact. Geopolitical conflicts often create panic in financial markets. If a large war escalates in the Middle East, global investors may move money into safer assets, stock markets could fall, and the Indian rupee may weaken. Higher oil prices also increase India's import bill, which puts pressure on the country's finances. Some analysts warn that prolonged disruption could push oil prices above $100 per barrel, which would significantly affect India's economy. Shield. 6. India's strategic response to manage the situation. India could take several steps: use its strategic petroleum reserves, increase oil imports from Russia or other suppliers, strengthen naval security in the Indian Ocean. In fact, Indian refiners have already started buying alternative crude oil supplies to reduce dependence on Middle Eastern routes during the crisis. These steps help prevent sudden shortages and stabilize the economy. Conclusion. So what does all of this mean? If a large Middle East war escalates into a global conflict, India may not be directly involved militarily. But the economic and strategic impact could still be massive. Fuel prices could rise, trade and exports could suffer, millions of Indian workers abroad could face uncertainty, and the economy could experience inflation and financial pressure. In today's interconnected world, a conflict thousands of kilometers away can still affect everyday life in India. Thumbs up if you found this video helpful. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. And tell me, what global topic should we break down next?